Hi, welcome to Whirlpool, where we talk about all things we consume, what we watch, read, listen, and play. And I'm Ben.
I'm Steven.
And let's get started. So, what have you been consuming?
So I'll start off with playing today. I've been playing Skyward Sword. I'm not sure if we talked about it last time you were over. Legend of Zelda, Skyward Sword.
I think so. You had issues with their camera and stuff, right?
Yeah. Okay, well, I think I was only like an hour or two into the game at that point, but now I'm much farther in, and it's a Zelda game for sure.
Yeah.
So glad we talked about that.
Would you recommend it? To someone like me who's never played a Zelda game past the very first Legend of Zelda that I hated immensely.
Like on the Super Nintendo?
On the Nintendo. The original Legend of Zelda. I couldn't get into it because like this map is so damn big, and unless you have a crazy beautiful mind memory or something, you have to draw them all out and write where you're going, and to me that's not fun. That works now with modern technologies, but back in the day as a small child, that was not for me.
Well, you might, if I was going to recommend a Legend of Zelda game, it'd probably be Breath of the Wild, because it's the most impressive game that series has ever made. But once again, I don't know if because it's a modern take, it'd be more accessible to you. I mean, it's super fun and super you can go anywhere at any time versus all the other Legend of Zelda games, which are very linear and straightforward. But it is an immense map, not quite Grand Theft Auto scale or anything like that, but still big. So I don't know if that would just be bring the same amount of issues or confusion.
With modern games, you have your map in the corner, or you can pause it and you can do checkpoints and stuff. It's easier to get around in a lot more modern big map games.
Yeah.
This wasn't with the original Legend of Zelda. You had your screen. You move left, it's a new screen. You go down, new screen. You go left again. Oh crap!
Sure.
How did I get back?
Yeah.
So I think Breath of the Wild would probably be more up my alley. I love the idea that you can just, hey, you want to go to the final boss right now? Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, you'll
probably not do
yeah,
well.
You're gonna die, but unless you're one of these crazy speed player freaks or whatever.
And I see videos on Reddit of the crazy gameplay of the different mechanics you have that can just launch people into the air and all the fun stuff.
I would also say part of me wants to recommend Ocarina of Time because that's universally the most well regarded, other than Breath of the Wild.
That's N64, right?
Yeah, it's N64, but you can get it for 3D. I think they've done some remasters and stuff. I think they did a GameCube version. Not that you have any of those systems,
sold my GameCube.
But if you could play it, I'd recommend that one. But at the same time, I played that game when I was a kid, so it was just the right time to play it. At your age, I'm not sure if because it is also just so dated. It's why would you play this when you can play Breath of the Wild? Because Breath of the Wild is just beautiful and fun and you can do everything that you could do in Ocarina of Time in a grander scale. So that's my current. That's the only game I'm playing right now.
How far in do you think you are?
I'm 66 to 70% in, I believe.
Okay. Of the main storyline?
Of the main story,
okay,
yeah.
Not of completion.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not one of those people who needs to do every side quest. And sometimes there's puzzles, and I'm not ashamed to say that I look up stuff, and or even if it's not necessarily a puzzle, I'll just be in a room and I need to hit a switch, and I have no idea that the switch is in the room. I'm there's no marker, and what's great about this game is you can there's Goddess who lives in your sword, and you can at any time you can press a button and you can what's my objective, or what's some advice for what I'm doing right now. But sometimes that's not helpful at all, and so I'm just I'm in this room, what am I doing? And she's just you need to find the thing. And it's I know.
Thanks.
I know I need to do that, but how do I get out of this room? And it's sometimes it's not helpful, but it's nice that you have that option. But yeah, so
yeah, I'm like you. If I get stuck on something, I'll Google it. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm not one of those people who's I'm not a real gamer unless I beat it just by myself or whatever. It's that's stupid. I play a game to have fun, and if if I'm struggling in the same space for 45 minutes or whatever, I'm like, I'm not having fun. So I need to skip this part and get to the fun part.
I remember doing that it was either Mario Galaxy or Mario Galaxy 2, and there was something you had to throw your fireballs to break these crates, and they gave you like 7 seconds. And it was just like, I can only get like a third of these crates. How do you do it? And so it's like, well, you had to like line yourself up so your fireball would hit multiple crates. And even when I figured that out on my own, I still wasn't getting like the right pattern, and there would always be one left. And it's just like, you know what? Screw this. I'm gonna go on YouTube. And even after watching it on YouTube, it took me a few tries. Like, if I'm not having fun, I'm gonna turn it off. And if I'm gonna turn it off, I may not go back to it. So yeah. I'll cheat. It's one thing to use like cheat codes, like we played Grand Theft Auto 3 and we would get all the money codes and the weapon codes and stuff like that and just like cheat our way through that game. That, I don't do that anymore. I do want to legit play a game for real. But if it's just to get past a stupid puzzle or a hard boss, I'll do it.
Yeah. There's stuff in this game where like like a little side quest where it'd be like, all right, give this guy a thing and then wait a day and then give him another thing, but you have to wait a day after you do this other thing, but it doesn't tell you that. So like I was like waking up like 10 days in a row just like, why? Like I thought, okay, like maybe I need to get a different potion or whatever the hell I had to do, and I was just like, I thought maybe there was like a glitch in the game, and I went on and I looked it up and I was like, okay, like I have to do this way later in the game. And there's a couple things in the game like that where it's just like, oh, I thought I could be able to do this now. Like there's a bamboo cutting challenge, and since it's motion control, like I mess up a lot, but you have to like pay money to like do it, and then if you get the high score, you get something. But I paid a bunch of money trying to like complete this challenge that I just thought was hard. It's like, oh, I need to like get farther in the game so my sword gets more power and more length so I can make it easier. It's like, oh. So it's just, it doesn't hold your hand necessarily, but it's like, oh, it'd be nice if I had some clue that this is a waste of time and money now.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, I've been watching a few things. On Netflix, a couple of weeks ago, the Fear Street movies came out. They released one for 1994, and then the next week was 1978, and then 1966. They are all excellent slasher films with a really interesting overarching story with all of them. If you watch just the first one and you start trying to pick it apart, it's like, well, that doesn't make sense, and this doesn't line up. And even after just watching the second one, you're trying to put it together, like, wait, but they found the body here, so why are they focusing on this? And it all comes together at the end pretty fantastically. I do have a few issues with the final act of the third movie. A little much for what the goal was, but other than that, I really liked all of them relatively equally. I'd say maybe the 1978 one is probably my favorite. I think there'll be a good Halloween rewatch every year.
Now, as like a slasher film, is it trying to be a good movie in the slasher film genre, or is it trying to be like, oh, this is supposed to be sort of like a B movie, like it's not supposed to be good, it's supposed to be sort of dumb and fun?
No, they do take themselves pretty seriously on it. I would say it's a pretty good slasher film, but it's hard to, I would say you probably wouldn't ever watch any of these on their own without watching the bigger picture, because as a slasher film, there's stuff that maybe doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you're watching the second one. The second one is the most slashery, camp and teens and stuff like that. But some of that stuff doesn't make much sense unless you've seen the first one. So you can say yes and no to that.
Fair enough.
But they're good. I definitely recommend them.
I mean, do you want to talk spoilers about it or anything? Because, I know I'm not going to watch them.
Yeah, there's nothing really... Okay, I guess the only main spoilery thing that I would say is just at the end, their whole goal is to kill this cop who has been the bad guy the whole time. It's not the witch, it's the cop who's like a devil worshiper. And instead of just walking up to him and blowing his brains out, they have this big convoluted thing of mixing blood with neon paint and squirting him over it and trapping these ghost slashers from decades ago behind the cages of stores and then releasing them at the right time so they go after them, and that doesn't even work in the end. So a lot of it was kind of convoluted and unnecessary just to pad the runtime, which with that third one, it's 2 hours long, and the first half is the stuff that takes place in 1666, and that's all like really tight, and you don't need more, but I would have rather spent more time in that time period, and then the wrap-up be a little bit shorter, but that's kind of a minor complaint. Some of the actors that are in the 94 timeline aren't my favorite. Not that they're bad, but they're not as likable as especially 1978. But yeah, I'd recommend it if that's your thing, if you're into the horror movies.
I've been listening to another podcast. It's not one that I necessarily would recommend for everyone, but it is a fun little podcast. It's called Newcomers. It has Lauren Lapkus, who you've seen in. If anyone's listening to this, you've seen in stuff. She's been in a lot of things.
She has a very unique look.
Yeah. Her probably most famous role is The Wrong Missy, which is like not a great role, not a great movie to be known for.
Yeah.
But that's probably where like most people have seen her on Netflix.
Orange is the New Black for a season.
Yeah. And her co-host is Nicole Byer. And so basically the podcast is them like jumping into a fandom and just like watching everything, and they're newcomers to it. So the first season they watched everything Star Wars, and then the next season was Lord of the Rings, and that's where I jumped in. Like I said in the previous episode, huge Lord of the Rings fan, and so they just had people on, like guests, like no one from the movies or anything, but just fans of Lord of the Rings to like explain the movies to them, and like they couldn't get any of the names right. And so really it's just like comedians sort of going like, these movies are too long, I hated them, or like it's so silly and like nothing made sense, and like I had to stop it like 5 times just because it was like too long and I couldn't get, and like so it's just, it seems, it's weird because it's like they're not necessarily hating it, but it's like not something in their wheelhouse. But they don't just watch the Lord of the Rings movies, they watch the animated films, they watch the Hobbit movies, they watched the Shadow of Mordor game get played, and they had the guy who played the main character from Shadow of Mordor like on and talk about like video games and like that whole culture and everything. They did a D&D session with Brendan Lee Mulligan from College Humor.
Nice.
And it was their first time playing Dungeons and Dragons, and so they just like, they've watched more, like I would consider myself a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, but they've consumed more Lord of the Rings content than I ever have, because I haven't seen the animated movies or anything like that. So it's fun seeing people's take who don't necessarily love the thing that you love, but still like find fun in it. The most recent, they did all the Medea stuff as well. But that's not a fandom I expected like them to tackle. I thought they would just do like big stuff, but the one they just started last week was Fast and Furious, to which I think they both have seen a couple, but not all of them. So they're watching all the movies, including Hobbs and Shaw and everything.
Do you think they'll watch the Netflix animated show?
Oh, I don't know. Probably.
It's not necessarily in canon, but...
Actually, but Lauren Lapkus isn't on Newcomers this season. It's John Gabris from College Humor.
Oh.
If you remember him. Yeah. And he's like a super fan. So it's like a super fan talking to Nicole Byer, and then just, I would listen to the first episode of that, and that's actually pretty funny.
Okay.
So if you want to like, if there's a fandom, any of those fandoms that you're like into, and just want to hear people like chat about it, it's just a fun little dumb take on it, and I find it's pretty enjoyable. But like I said, it's, they might say some things and like get names wrong of characters you like, and you might find it frustrating if you don't want to like hear people just kind of like eviscerate the thing you love. But it's nice to hear people's hot takes on it.
Did they ever come around to Lord of the Rings, or did they write it off as, this is definitely not for me?
I think they've found a new respect for the fantasy genre and found things that they really liked about it. Like, they know a ton of trivia in terms of like, they won a bunch of Oscars, and it's not them shitting on stuff the entire time. And like, they pretty much every episode they find stuff they like about it. It's just they have a hard time falling in love with it like so many other people have, and it is such a dense lore that like other people know like stuff about the Silmarillion and stuff. Like, they didn't read any of those books, and like they're getting little details about stuff they never would have gotten otherwise, that I think makes them go like, okay, like that makes sense, I like that. But in the context of what they're watching at the moment, they're like, it's just not for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they like it and respect the people who like it, but I'd be surprised if they ever see anything Lord of the Rings ever again.
Okay.
So
how long are these episodes?
They're all like an hour.
Okay.
Yeah,
and they do
typically long.
Is it multiple episodes per fandom, right?
Yeah, so I think Star Wars and Lord of the Rings were both like 20, and yeah, because there's so much content with both of those.
So is it like one episode where we talk about this one movie?
Yeah. So it was like one episode Fellowship of the Ring, next episode Two Towers, and then animated movie. Star Wars, same thing. I don't remember if they did The Mandalorian or anything like that.
What about like...
But they did all 9 Star Wars movies, and I think they
Clone Wars or anything?
I'll have to double check. Like I said, I didn't listen to the Star Wars ones. I just kind of blew over those because I just saw Lord of the Rings. I was like, all right, I'll listen to them. I like these two. I'll listen to them talk about it. Yeah. But yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, Nicole Byer is really on a hot streak right now. She's
in everything.
Yeah, like she's the new host of Wipeout with John Cena.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had like I guess like TBS bought Wipeout, and it's pretty much the same show, but now John Cena and Nicole Byer are the hosts.
Yeah, she's hosting everything.
Yeah.
I don't know how you like. I only have one job, and I feel like I have no time for anything. And
they don't have the 9 to 5.
Well, I understand that.
That is their job.
Just like doing multiple podcasts and hosting multiple shows. I've seen a couple episodes that nailed it, which I'm not a cooking show guy, but like that show is actually pretty fun. Yeah. Have you ever seen any of it? Oh, okay.
I generally avoid cooking shows besides Chopped because that's just like easily digestible.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun because like the whole point is like they're not good cooks and it just look how bad these people are at a thing. But it's still like a very like sweet show, and they're not like they'll tell you like their thing is not good, but they're not like being mean to you about it, and it's just like it's like the sweetness of Great British Bake Off with the like hilarity of I don't know American Idol auditions that are bad. So that's what I'd say. It's like,
it's no Gordon Ramsay yelling at them for pieces of shit.
Yeah, they have like a professional chef on there, but he's just a very sweet old French guy. Have you been listening to? Oh,
no, I'm not listening to anything new. I watched another movie. Surprise, surprise. It's called Blood Red Sky. It's on Netflix, and the best synopsis I've heard is it's Die Hard on a plane, but John McClane is a female vampire. And if that sounds cool, then you should definitely check it out. If that sounds like a really dumb idea, then it's probably not for you. Pretty much a basic story is a woman and her son are taking a trip to New York to visit a doctor to help her with her blood disease, and she has to inject herself with something, and we see that like she's bald and she has to wear a wig, and her son's kind of self-sufficient, and she's really going through a hard time. She almost kind of just either looks like she's going through a chemo, or maybe she's a heroin addict or something. So they get onto a plane, and it gets hijacked by, what's his name, Dominic Purcell? Is that his name from Prison Break and Blade 3? Yeah.
I was going to say the guy who played Dracula.
Yeah. Okay. And there's also Graham McTavish, who played Balin in The Hobbit. He does the voice of Dracula's son in Castlevania, the animated series. So you had 2 other vampire things in here.
So long, Walking Dead. We're going back to vampires.
Yeah. So pretty much they hijacked the plane to like crash it and fuck with the stock market or something. I can't really remember. It's not really important why. I
was gonna say, isn't stock market all on like computers and stuff? Like, can you
it was
crash
like
it?
Create a huge disaster that would flood the market a certain way, and then you can buy things cheap or whatever, something like that.
That makes sense.
So they're all pretty generic mercenary guys, except for one of the Stewarts. He's like a crazy psychopath who's just like, he seems more into this whole heist because he could potentially kill people, not for any sort of money. He kind of like does a Joker sort of turn instantly. Okay. It's bizarre. So the woman gets shot, and they drag her body away, and then it turns out she's a vampire.
Wow.
So she drags herself to the lower cargo holds and like drains like a little chihuahua or a poodle or something, and to give her power back. And then she starts picking these guys off one by one and starts getting more and more vampiric and drinking more. One of the nice things about this is it's not a sexy vampire look, and I don't love vampires, but I really dislike the sexy romantic vampires, like Interview with the Vampire. I like feral monsters. So the look that they have for these vampires are more Nosferatu-like, which
cool.
On surface, I don't love the like sharp middle teeth. Vampires kind of look goofy when it's the sharp middle ones, but like long pointed ears and no hair, and she gets like more and more crazy looking as it goes. Really, really good makeup effects. Like she's in her vampire form for most of it, and there are a couple of CG things where she like screams and her mouth opens up like extra wide, and all of the effects look really, really good. And she pretty much starts taking these guys down, and then the crazy Stewart, who is like the Joker, he actually takes some of her blood and injects himself to become a vampire, and she like traps him in a car and like lights him on fire, but he still survives. And then
was there something in the movie that like established like that would work, or he's just like, I'm gonna give it a shot?
I think it was just a fuck it, she's biting people and turning them into vampires. I'm gonna just take her blood and give it to myself. At first, when he did it, I thought he was like, I'm gonna sell this because no one's gonna believe I had vampires here, and I'll have the one vial of vampire blood and I can make a ton of money. Nope, he just wanted to become a vampire himself. So the whole thing kind of like goes way off the rails, and passengers are getting bit, and other mercenary guys are getting bit, and by the end, like everybody on the fucking plane's a vampire, and they're just tearing each other up. It's kind of had a Train to Busan vibe, where it just kept accelerating and accelerating, and it is about 2 hours. And when it got to like the hour and a half mark, I was like, this really should be wrapping up right now. But then it cranks it up to 11, and everyone starts going ape shit, and it's like, okay, I didn't think they need this, but now that I've seen it, I like that they went this route. And it's just like her son and this passenger that he kind of bonded with, trying to survive the whole plane ride. And it's a really cool vampire movie that has excellent blood and gore, really good makeup effects. It is a German film, so it is mostly in German, but there's a lot of American and British actors in it who do all their lines in English, so the dub isn't all that bad. Everybody sounds like they probably should, except for the little boy. He's just a little too precocious. I don't think maybe they got a real child to do the dub, and it's more of a voice actor who's good at doing children.
Okay.
But it comes off really obvious and inauthentic.
Gotcha.
But besides that, pretty cool vampire movie. Blood Red Sky. Check it out.
All right. Like when people are starting to get bit, like how, I'm just curious, is like, because if I was in that situation, like, does everyone rush to like the back so they're all like huddled in a group and they're pretty much like pushing each other, or is it just like everyone's kind of just like mostly sitting in their seat or in the aisle, and they're just kind of like sporadically like trying to fight off whatever? Because like I feel like the second you see like one guy getting bit, like everyone would freak out and like try and get away as far as possible. It's like if you're on a plane, like there's really nowhere to go. Yeah. So like
it's definitely one of those Hollywood planes that has a
two
huge
levels.
No, not two levels, but a huge compartment underneath. There's like a car being stored under there, and it's just like there's plenty of room for everybody to run around, but they are all pushed to the back early on by the terrorist group.
Okay.
And like with bombs set up, like if you guys try anything, we'll just fucking blow the plane right here to keep them all cowed. But then like one person that you think dies because a drink cart fell on them or something, but nope, they actually got bit, and then they snatch someone else. So then everybody runs to a different side of the plane, and then they trap the vampire behind a wall, and then the mercenaries try to go underneath and up and around, but then they block that door, and it's like, so they do a good use of their space. It's not unbelievable.
Okay. Last question: do the vampires in this have any sort of particular thing that you haven't seen in other vampires, or at least like something you don't see often? Like, could these vampires like just somehow magically like crawl on the ceiling, or did they seem to have like more like, did they have super strength, or were they just humans?
They were strong. There is, like, heightened agility and stuff like that. There's no hypnotism or turning into a bat or anything like that. It's more the science side, not the supernatural or religious side. But I don't think they do anything I haven't seen before. No, I think they're pretty standard. They just have a pretty good look.
So it's more like 30 Days of Night vampires.
Yeah, like monstrous.
And I love that movie.
Yeah, that's a great movie. Like, as soon as the crazy Stewart gets it, he doesn't try to talk to his comrades like, oh, now I have the power to take her down. He just, no, I'm going to bite you and I'm going to kill you. And then, like, one of them's bleeding out, so he bites that one, turns in, like, he knows I could get these guys on my side as vampires, but they're not trying to work out their differences. And even the mom is, like, sees the kid and, like, wants to go, and then she has to be like, rah, rah, go away, rah.
Do they ever say, like, how the mom got bit, or what
there is a, like, when the child was just a baby, her and her husband were driving on a road on a snowy night, and the car breaks down, and he's like, oh, I guess I gotta go walk to the thing or whatever, and he's gone forever. So she grabs the kid, walks out, and sees his footprints, and then, like, blood, and then, like, dragging marks and stuff. So she goes, and there's a tiny little house where there was just some crazy vampire in there, killed her husband, bit her on the hand, and she killed him by, like, sunlight. Like, the sun was coming up, he was trying to get through a window and burned him up. So then
did he just, like, deteriorate instantly, or did he just lay there, he's just like a burnt body?
No, he, like, lights on fire and then runs away, and then it's like the end of the scene.
Oh, okay.
And then she comes back years later, and that vampire had a dad and was like, you killed my son, which is kind of a good thing because we vampires we're a plague. We don't deserve to exist. And he tries to kill her. She kills him. And so that's why she's going to this doctor to try to keep it under control, because she agrees vampires are a really big problem, but she doesn't want to die and leave her son alone.
And I mean, now I'm kind of invested in the story. I'm just going to keep asking you spoilery stuff. So I imagine, okay, they stop the bad guys, or I imagine they stop the bad guys. A whole plane full of vampires. This woman agrees that vampires shouldn't exist.
Yes.
So I assume she's like, all right, I know I caused this, I got to take this thing down. Now is like the emotional crux of the movie, like, oh, how do I take the plane down and like, I can't let these things get out, but my son's on the plane. So does that decision, is that like the final decision of the movie, or is it like the son gets killed by the bad guys, or the son gets bit, so the mom's just like, all right, well, like, I might as well just kill us all, because, like, you know, I don't want my son to be this thing.
No, that makes sense. She gets her son to go into the cockpit with the passenger that he made friends with, and they actually land the plane in, I guess it's Germany or England, something like that, some European country. They turn the plane around and land, and he's trying to convince them, like, you guys can't go into this plane, it's dangerous, and no one's believing him that they're vampires. But it's one of those things where it's like, you have to believe me, you can't go in there, there's monsters, and then they, like, give him a shot to knock him out or whatever, and it's like, let the dude explain himself. But they land during the day, so they're all, like, hiding underneath, and they are sending in, like, a tactical team to see what the hell is going on, and it's like, don't go in there, the sun is setting, you're gonna get fucked. And so when all the Marines go in, the vampires just, like, rip them to shreds. But since they had those bombs planted earlier, the little kid had the detonator, like, in his teddy bear or something. So when they're, like, taking the kid out, he sees that the vampires are about to get off the plane. He sees his mom and stuff, and then he hits it and blows up the plane and kills them all. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty solid ending, especially, like, you don't really see, you know, kids kill their parents too often. Yeah. Might be willing to, so good for that little boy.
Yeah, and it's not like he didn't know what was going, like, he knew she was a vampire and stuff like that, but he was just, like, doing all he can to be a good son to his mom.
What a nice story.
Yeah.
Glad it had a happy ending.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to talk about was movie posters, because the other day they released the official Shang-Chi Legend of the Ten Rings poster, which looks like every other Marvel poster.
There's a cover of like Empire magazine where it's like him and there's like a ghostly dragon coming on. Like, that's cooler than their movie poster. What is their problem? Who are making these posters that they don't know Photoshop very well, or like they just use the most generic coloring, you know, the whole blue-orange thing, and it's just, and especially with someone like Marvel and their special effects are so great, you can't find someone to make an interesting poster.
And don't get me wrong, like, I understand the logistics of, you know, posters aren't the thing that's really gonna like draw someone into a movie. It's like, and
that's
Marvel
first tease though. That's when people are walking around, they go, "Ooh, what's that?" I mean, Shang-Chi. I don't know what that is. I'll look into it.
But that trailer's been out for months. Sure. Where this poster came out 2 days ago. Yeah. So and I don't necessarily want to just pick on Marvel. Like, they're across the board bad, with the exception of like maybe the Ant-Man poster where it's just like all white and says Ant-Man. And it's just like, that's kind of like a fun little thing, even though it's not. Yeah. It's like it's a little bit eye-catching because the white is so bright, but also, you know, it's different. But it's also like a boring poster too.
But I don't mind their posters of like the first Iron Man one, and you have all the floating heads of all the characters and stuff. Like, they do that for Captain America and Thor and Infinity War and stuff. I don't mind those posters because they're, I don't know, they kind of remind me of like the Drew Struzan,
Indiana
Jones, Star Wars stuff like that. It's like, this is just the modern version of it.
Yeah, but those were so great because it was like they were so stylized. Where this is just like, we're gonna take that poster, but gloss it over with Photoshop effects. Yeah. And it doesn't look good.
You know what Marvel movie has the worst poster? Thor. It's just like him like looking over his shoulder, and it's just his red cape, and it's like black background, red cape, blonde hair. It's really ugly.
And I mean, Marvel's not the only, like, posters are so, a lot of posters are lazy, and like I said, I get it. Like, they're not typically the thing that like will bring someone in. They're more for fan people. But it's like, you guys still spend like a ton of money making these things. You hire people to design these things.
You gotta print them.
And you gotta print them. Like, making these things, I imagine, still costs like $1 million, if not more.
And I mean, part of it's advertising budget.
Well, sure, yeah. But I mean, they go to every single theater. I mean, you know, when we were working at the movie theater, like, sometimes they would send you like 10 copies of the same poster. Like, so they're making millions of these things, and with the amount of money they put in, it just seems like, why not make something cool so it can be a collector's item, so it can like pull people's attention, which is like, once again, like, I know you don't necessarily need to for Marvel movies and maybe some other big budget stuff, but like, some of the coolest posters are just like indie movie posters or whatever. And like, even the movie we're going to talk about, Green Knight, like, the poster, it's very simple. It's like bright red and like yellow lettering, but it just looks so different. Like, it really draws you in with his like silhouette and everything. Like, there's so many cool. Yeah, the Simpsons poster, I remember, was just like yellow with the 3 black lines. It's just like, and it made perfect sense. You knew instantly what it was, because only Homer Simpson's head looks like that. Yeah. And just, I don't know. I wish posters were cared for more if we're gonna like keep using them. And I know like fan-made posters and stuff are a big thing online, and they're often like way better. And it's like, I don't necessarily expect them to like have whatever studio's putting out. Doesn't necessarily need to have the best poster, because someone can always come up with a new, cool, exciting idea. But I just wish there was a little bit more care. Like the Shang-Chi poster, like, there's one section, it's just like a Subaru. It's like, why is there like a car chase? There's like no character, like, you can't tell what it is. It's just like, here's all the characters doing like action scene or whatever, and then like in the bottom right hand corner is just like a 2 cars going after each other. It's like, what? Why is that there?
It must be important in the movie. It must be a good action sequence that they're like, this sequence is a character in itself, and we need to make sure it's on the poster.
I don't think it's on there, but like in the trailer for the movie, you see Abomination, you see a giant water dragon, you see like mythical lion creatures. Like, you could have put any of those things on there, because they've already been spoiled in the trailer that you guys put out, but you guys were just like, no, here's a car. It's like, and you can't even like necessarily tell what it is. It's not like it has like it's
not like he's hanging off the top of it or anything.
Yeah, no, it's just a car like driving in the mountains, and it's like, why?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole poster is boring and why, but like especially that, it's wild.
Yeah, I saw some posters today, like the Venom There Will Be Carnage poster. It's ridiculous, it's like you're inside Carnage's mouth and you see the teeth and Venom's coming out. It's like absolutely ridiculous, but I could totally see 12-year-old boys just like, yes, I want that on my wall.
Yeah, I saw that for the first time today, and it's not like the best poster by any means, but it's a little bit, it's different.
It's eye-catching.
Yeah, it's certainly it's setting a tone, I think, at least. It's like, oh, this is going to be like the crazy, violent Carnage one, obviously. So
I didn't even talk about old.
Yeah. I was going to bring that up to you.
I mean, we can, but, I mean, it doesn't matter. But I totally forgot.
Or we can save it until I see it, but I don't even know if I'm going to see it. Yeah, talk about it all.
Okay.
I'm done talking about posters. It's just, I'm a big fan of movie posters. I want better quality movie posters.
Absolutely.
I used to collect movie posters. I don't do that now, but I think for film fans, posters have always been this cool thing. And when movie studios just don't put the effort in to something that like they're putting money and effort to make, just not to design, it's kind of frustrating for me sometimes.
I want you to look up the ugliest movie posters that exist. Google X-Men First Class, Professor X, or Magneto poster. I want you to actually do this right now. I don't know if you remember, or like X-Men First Class silhouette poster.
I remember the only X-Men First Class poster I remember is just like the X logo, like Xavier School, I think.
No, these are atrocious. They are the most low effort, nothing of posters. They're absolutely embarrassing.
X-Men First Class
movie poster. If you just put movie poster, I'm sure it'll be one of the images.
Okay. Let's see.
It's the silhouette ones.
Oh my god, Magneto's doing full frontal nudity on this.
It's weird that, I mean, if you're going to get anyone to do it.
Okay, I'm looking at the Charles Xavier one.
Isn't that? It's just a floating head in a silhouette with a white background.
That's a weird choice.
Yeah. Like, show a little more of the body or show him sitting in his chair, something, but it's just a floating face. And this is the first time McAvoy is Professor X, so yeah, you get the silhouette of wheelchair-bound Xavier, but it's just like, if you don't know much of anything and you just see this floating face, you're like, that's not Patrick Stewart. What the fuck is that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's bad.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, he's in the wheelchair, you can put X-Men, like, you know that's Charles Xavier. And now I'm looking at the Magneto one. It's like if you know it's X-Men, you can kind of like guess that's Magneto, but like without the sort of more pointy, iconic helmet, it just kind of looks like a dude. It almost looks like a Batman film, because it's like he's got little kind of pointy things on the side, and his cape. So if it didn't say X-Men, you'd be like, oh, is there a new Batman movie coming out? But just, yeah, like Fassbender and McAvoy, like they've been in stuff, but they weren't like...
They weren't names.
They weren't huge names quite yet, I don't think. So just having their faces on was just like, what? Why? Wow. Two
of my favorite movie posters that I own are 12 Monkeys. It's just a white background with the 12 Monkeys symbol of like all the monkeys on it, and it just says 12 Monkeys. It's very cool. And I also love the Hard Candy poster. Just Ellen Page in a red hoodie on a giant bear trap, and that was so striking. I saw that poster and was like, what the hell is that? That looks interesting. And then I can't even remember what movie I saw, but the trailer was on that, and it was just like, oh, damn, I gotta see that.
Yeah. Plus, that movie was just awesome.
Yeah. Really good. And that was, introduced me to both those actors. I didn't know anything of Patrick Wilson?
Yeah, Patrick
Wilson.
I think that might have been the first, like, Patrick Wilson movie that I saw where I was just like, this guy is, like, great.
Yeah. I'm not sure of timeline, but I'm pretty sure I saw... Is it called Little Things? Didn't we talk about Little Things?
Little Children.
Little Children. He was in that, and he's in Phantom of the Opera. And it's like I saw him in those, but he never really stood out compared to Hard Candy.
Yeah. So, this podcast is also sponsored by Patrick Wilson.
Give us money, Pat. Come on.
Come on the show. We'd love to talk to you. I want to ask you so many questions about all your stuff. You were like...
Night Owl.
Yeah. You were one of the best parts of the A-Team. Remember the A-Team?
Mm-hmm.
Bad guy in that?
Oh, yeah, he was. I was like, no, that's Bradley Cooper. Oh, no, that's right.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper was Face.
Yeah.
I mean, Charlotte Copley was also pretty good in that, but
yeah,
Patrick Wilson was
Damn,
good.
I forgot he was in that.
That movie was actually alright.
Yeah, I didn't mind A-Team.
Yeah.
My sister got to meet Patrick Wilson. She was in New York, and he was performing on Broadway, and you just, you stand by the back door and wait for him to come out, and so she got a picture with him. So
that's cool.
That's cool, yeah. I saw the movie Old.
Woo!
M. Night Shyamalan's new movie, Old.
Shyamalan.
I actually kind of enjoyed this movie. It's not a good movie, and it's not so bad it's good, but I have found myself just kind of nodding off in theaters lately, maybe because I'm old, but it doesn't matter what time of day I go, I just seem to get comfy and get bored, and I find my eyes drifting. But this movie, I was locked and loaded the whole time. I was so interested. It moves at a really good pace. There's really no parts that slow down once it gets going.
Do you remember how long it is?
I think it's only 90 minutes. My movie started at 7:45 and I was out before 10. So, and they always have a ton of trailers and
credits
stuff.
and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So if you don't know, Old is the story of a family, a husband and wife and their son and daughter. Daughter's a little bit older than the son. And they go to a resort. They get told about this crazy private beach. They go to it. Other couples show up as well. And everybody starts getting old. And they find out that every 30 minutes that you're on the beach is a year of your life. And they start noticing it in the kids first. And because, when you're older, you don't notice it as much. There are some inconsistencies with the age growing up. It seems like the boy, they cast more actors for him to grow up, whereas the girl kind of got to a certain age and then they just kept her that actress. So at one point it almost seems like the younger brother is older than her, and I think they just wanted to keep that actress, and and that's fine. It's really kind of hard to talk about without going into the ending, but everybody starts having issues. Before I get to the ending, do you have any questions about the movie? Because really the only thing I could say is it has some of the weirdest cinematography that M. Night has ever done. It's either a constant rotating circle going between everybody, or it's a wide pan to the right, and maybe it stops on the rocks, and then it's a wide pan over all the characters into the ocean, and then wide pan back, or it's like they're chasing people around and nothing was mapped out of how they were going to shoot it. It was all just guerrilla style, and it's just who am I supposed to be focusing on? And then there was even a shot where it's they put the camera down and said, we're going to be shooting up at this angle, get in frame, but they had it zoomed in a little bit, so you're only seeing the hairline of one guy in a corner and the forehead and eyes of another person, and it's mostly sky, and everyone's coming in and out of focus. And it could be a little nauseating. It was just so bizarre how it was shot. I don't think, because it is pretty much one location for the whole thing.
He was trying to make it more exciting by doing more active camera angles.
There's not
stillness.
There's not a lot of lockdown shots. They definitely have them, but it seemed they're well, how do you really map out this scene when it's just rocks and ocean? So fuck it, we're just gonna go loosey-goosey with it. And it almost had a what are the guys who did Jeff Who Lives at Home, the brothers, Duplass brothers, who I fucking hate. They're the worst filmmakers. They do not know how to move a camera. And with them, they'd be we have two actors sitting there, and they'll do these zooms for no reason, and then they'll zoom out, and then they'll get close, and they'll go, and it's these are just two people talking. Why are you doing this dynamic push all the time? And it almost felt like M. Night went to their school of shooting, and it was just all guerrilla style. So sometimes it made for some interesting shots, and sometimes it was just dude, lock this shit down. But, oh yeah, and I'd say my other complaint is M. Night's not a man of natural dialogue. People are just, it almost sounds like a high school play written by high schoolers. Like, people just talk in such odd ways, and it's hard without, you know, I didn't take notes about every little thing, but like one guy is just like, my name is Ken, and I'm a nurse. And then they go on and it's just like, okay, my name is Ken. And it's just like, wait, why did he have to say his name again? It's just, it's very weird. But the concept was so bizarre, and watching everybody like deteriorate before our eyes was like so entertaining.
Now, was it like you watched them quickly deteriorate, or was it just like you looked over and then you came back like, and it was like it's been 20 minutes or whatever, and then like the body's like totally...
I thought there would be more of that. There would be some like digital work of like, because he was doing all these crazy pans, you pan to one side, and then when you come back, oh, this person has gray hair now or something. But they didn't. Or if it was focusing on someone's face, you would start seeing like wrinkles start to form. But I didn't notice any of that. It was just kind of, there's so many people on the beach that you can focus on someone, and then the next time you go back to that character, you can age them up a little bit with makeup. You never really see them actually. Well, there's one person that you see deteriorate pretty quick, but like they find a dead body and they pull it onto the shore and they cover it up, and then they go back 3 hours later and it's just bones. And that's how they figure out the timeline. Like, well, it takes about 7 years for a body, for all the flesh to completely disintegrate, deteriorate in open air. And so we've been here for, you know, X amount of 3 hours for 7 years. So, okay, that's about a half hour for every year, something like that. But yeah, you don't see people talking and all this, and they turn into an old crone. It's just all of a sudden this old lady dies because she's old.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I'd say the only time you kind of do that is with the voices. It'll have like the little girl going like, Mom, is everything okay? Yes, honey, everything's fine. And then you bring in the older actress to start talking, and they do a little mixing of the voices.
That's cool.
So that will happen. But yeah, you don't see anybody like age before your eyes. It's always like from cut to cut to cut.
I mean, I haven't seen the movie. That really feels like a missed opportunity that you could do some like, I mean, obviously maybe that's just like a budget reason. It's like, okay, I can make this movie for, you know, 10 million versus 20 million if I'm just like digitally like tweaking these people like every other scene. I think you could have had some like really interesting cool shots if you would have done something like age them, and you could like see their bodies change a little bit.
They do other stuff with the time, like a guy gets slashed across the face and everybody's freaking out, and he's just like, oh my god, why'd you do that? And then he's like, okay, I must be going into shock because I don't even feel it anymore. And he pulls his hand away, and it's a scar.
Yeah.
And someone has like a tumor in their body, and the doctors have told her that your tumor is benign, you're fine, nothing will happen, but it starts to grow and grow and grow real fast. So they're trying to do surgery, and they like cut her open and seals up real quick. So they have to cut her open and then grab the sides and pull out this tumor. Cool. And at first they're like, oh, it's like the size of a golf ball. And then like 2 seconds later, it's like, oh my god, it's like a grapefruit. And then when they pull it out, it's like this huge fucking thing.
That's cool.
Yeah, so there are some cool things, but they even talk about like, well, why aren't our fingernails growing really fast, or why isn't our hair growing? Like, well, those cells are dead. This whatever's happening is like only working on living cells. So I think this is a movie like a Tenet or something, where if you really start breaking down the quote unquote science, it doesn't make any sense. But who cares?
Yeah,
you're just there for...
You're just there for the... Okay. The last question I have... in the trailer, the little girl becomes pregnant at one point, correct? How is that explained if I assume she doesn't have sex with anybody, or she does?
She does.
Oh.
So this little 6-year-old girl and this little 6-year-old boy, they've grown up a little bit, and they even talk about how, like, I can feel different. Like, my brain is changing. Like, I'm understanding what it is. Like, I realize I was 6 years old, but I have a bigger brain now, even if some of the things they say or how they act is still a little childish, they're growing with it, so they get it. So they're laying in a tent together, just kind of like going like, wow, isn't this kind of crazy? You know, like we're like teenagers now, and they're just like getting closer and closer. And then you see them like walk out of the tent holding hands, all smiling, all goofy, and just like in the time it takes her to like walk up to them, she's instantly pregnant. So yeah, you know, it would only take 20 minutes for her to go from insemination to having a baby. So it just goes boop, 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 boop.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. So like when you see them laying together, you're like, oh god, they're gonna fuck. And I know they're just like 6 years old just like an hour ago.
I mean, like, I get it, and like I think if this was like a real scenario, like I could see that. So
it's like they're going through puberty in an instant, so like they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah,
with their
it's
hormones.
just like So imagine being a 6-year-old boy, but then having 10 years of hormones just shoot into you at the same time. Like, I bet his erection was just like rock hard for a good, like, for an hour straight. Like, the second he was done, he's like, all right, let's do it again. Yeah.
Well, it's funny, they make a joke about it, like she's going through labor and he's all like, I'm gonna marry her and I'm gonna be a good dad. And then his dad's just like, you know what you did, what you guys did causes babies. And he's like, I thought you had to do it like 10 times or something for it to work. It's like, no, it needs to happen once.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Like the dad who was the father of the girl, like, how pissed was he? Because like in a sense it's like, you had sex with my 6-year-old daughter, but at the same time it's like she's not 6, and it's like he was 6 too. It's a really weird conversation.
Yeah, he's kind of going through his own stuff. He has early dementia, and so his rapid aging, like he's the one that's trying to do the surgery, and he's like fixated on like, there's a movie with who was it? It was like Jack Nicholson and Al Pacino. They were in a movie together, and they're like, dude, fucking focus. And he's like, he's losing his mind rapidly with dementia. So when this is happening, like he just lost his mom. She was the old lady that dies like pretty instantly, and he's the one that slashed the dude. He's kind of going nuts. So he's pretty cool about it. I think they focus more on the other people. I don't quite remember.
And I guess if like you have, in the span of like 20 minutes, your daughter like has sex for the first time, and then is like pushing on a baby instantly, I guess she's just like, all right, well, like, let's get this thing out, and like pray to God like everything works out. And just obviously they're dealing with a lot, so it doesn't matter.
Your 6-year-old kid just grew up, 10 years over the last few hours. That's such a crazy concept to handle. Her getting pregnant is just like, just throw another log in the fire. It's all crazy.
All right, one final question before we get to the finale.
Okay.
What happens to the baby?
It dies instantly.
Instantly? Okay.
Yeah. They set it down and pick it back up, but like, because they weren't like instantly feeding it and stuff, because like the kids are hungry all the time because they're growing and stuff. Yeah. It was like neglected, almost like it was neglected for weeks, and just like died instantly. So you don't even see it. It's just like bones in a bath towel or beach towel. Yeah. It's like, oh, you hear it crying, and then it stops.
I mean, I guess it's a good way to have like a really intense, dramatic scene, and then it's like, okay, now I don't have to write this baby stuff, because that would have been like really terrifying. Actually, maybe that was a missed opportunity too. Like, it makes sense that the baby wouldn't survive, but like, just imagine like you see a baby, and then you kind of like, I imagine, because those things grow so fast from the span of like 1 to 2.
Yeah.
Like you just
that's one you would actually see.
Yeah, you would see grow and just like instantly start walking and stuff, and just be like, I mean, would it even know human language? Because like it never. That could have been terrifying. Yeah. But I don't know. Now I kind of want to see that version.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. There's only one monster-y version, and it's kind of funny and horrifying at the same time. There actually is a bunch of like reaction shots of people just like holding their head and just like with wide eyes it's so funny. Like, if you just took a screenshot of it, it's the goofiest looking stuff, and like, I know we're supposed to be scared with them, but it's just hilarious. So the little girl who got pregnant, her mom is like the hot Instagram model looking one, and she's married to the older man who's the doctor with dementia. So like, he married young, and she has like a calcium deficiency, so she has to constantly have like extra calcium because her bones are brittle or whatever. And because she hasn't having it, like her spine's getting all fucked up and she's getting all hunchback and stuff, and so she goes and hides in a cave, and the brother and sister are like backing up and lighting matches, and she's just like, don't look at me, and she like picks up a rock and her arm breaks because of the weight, but because everything happens so quick, it heals instantly, so it's all twisted. And then she's like crawling and flailing herself and like smacking her arms and legs against the walls, and there's just like breaking and healing instantly. So she's like this twisted
Wolverine.
She's like this twisted mess, and it's like, it's funny because it's like, you know, like in Rick and Morty when Rick asks Jerry to fold himself 7 times, and he's just like, no problem. It kind of reminded me of that, and it looks like something from Silent Hill or whatever. But when the arm is broken like 7 times, it looks goofy. You know, it's not just a break here and a break here. It's like
it's like how you would draw like a lightning bolt symbol, because it's just like
or like you're trying to make a maze or something. And it's horrifying, but it's kind of funny too.
All right. So I have one theory.
Okay.
And it's not really a theory. It's just like, does it have something to do with this? It seems like most of the characters you've brought up have some sort of like medical thing, and does that have something to do with it? Mm-hmm. Is it like they send the people to the beach as like, I guess it wouldn't be like a mercy killing, because it's not like some of these people had like necessarily like death.
Yeah, like she had a tumor, guy has dementia, calcium thing, the one lady has like seizures. Yeah, everybody has some sort of issue.
Okay, what?
Okay.
Tell me.
So, the resort finds these people that have, like, crazy diseases and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They cherry-pick them and put them on the beach. Oh, when you arrive at the resort, they're like, oh, based on your food preferences, we've created a cocktail specifically for you. And it's like, oh, they know what I like. Well, they're actually putting experimental drugs to help these people with their illnesses.
Okay.
And now they're able to test the effects of these drugs in a span of a day, when it would normally take like 8 years to see how do people react to this drug. They can do it and do it all in a day. And so like the one with seizures, she doesn't have seizures through the whole thing until the very, very end. And they're like, she technically went, 8 years without ever having a seizure. We can send this pill to market now. And so yeah, it's medical testing.
Okay. All right. So 2 things with that. One, so it's just like the drugs are so these theoretical experimental drugs are just like so strong, you only just take it once,
I guess,
as opposed to like every other drug in human existence which you like continuously take.
Yes.
I mean,
apparently
there's some things you pop once and it just cures you or whatever. Sure. But okay, but I don't know how much that tracks. And then 2, it's like, I imagine they had some way to monitor them.
They're just watching from the up top. Like M. Night, he's the guy that drives them down to the beach.
Okay.
And so then he's like, they look and they're like, someone's up there. You see something like shiny and reflective, and it's like, I think that guy has a camera. And it's just him on a little thing, just watching them, and like, yep, all of them are dead. All right, I'll bring in all the data and all the videotapes, and then they look at the info and keep testing drugs.
Do they explain, like, because it's no surprise, like I can buy like shady medical corporations, like it's like but it seems like they're doing this testing, so it's like, okay, we're gonna make drugs that save millions of lives, so we're willing to throw away these occasional people. Like I can kind of get behind that idea, but I don't know if like, one, the testing really makes a lot of sense, and 2, it's like, okay, well, you guys are doing this for the right reasons, but you guys are like, you're trying to save lives by just like throwing away these innocent people who, like, these people could have lived for another 80 years or 70 years or whatever. It's just like, oh, we're gonna kill kids.
Yeah.
Because do the kids have deficiencies too?
Nope. That's one of the things that they bring up, is just like, you're you're sacrificing these people who have no issues just for the ones that do. And one of the doctors even talks about, like, we need to separate the people with, like, physical illnesses, it's mental illnesses, because the guy that had dementia, he actually stabbed someone to death. Like, he actually stabs him enough times quick enough to actually kill him. Like, well, we need to separate that because he's tainting these other test subjects, so we lost all the data on that person. And, like, the guy who's running it, there's a little boy there, says it's his, like, uncle. Like, the little boy says the man's the uncle, but they're of different race and we don't see any sort of other parentage. And he's like, you can't play with those kids because they're going to go to the beach. You could play with those kids because they're actually just here for a resort. And the little kid actually gives the main kid, like, a little note, a little cipher that I'm not going to get into that, but a little note that says, like, this is how you get out of the beach, pretty much. What was the question? Yeah, it's very flimsy.
Yeah,
absolutely. And yeah, the one take drug and the sacrificing many people just for the one test subject is flimsy.
And my last question is the beach itself ever explained? Is it like some just weird portal thing that they found?
They just say this beach was a gift from God. There's something in the rocks that causes this to happen. The only way you could get out is you have to go into the ocean, swim into this coral reef, and then come out the other side. Because they were talking about, like, because when they try to leave, it's like they get headaches and they black out. They're like, it's like coming up from the bottom of the ocean too quickly. Your body can't handle it. And they're like, well, what if we were able to, like, if it's the rocks and it's emitting something, if we could have, like, a metal shell over us that could block, like, the radiation or whatever, and we can get out of here. We'll go in under the water and through the coral acts as, like, a natural barrier, so you're able to escape without so when they escape, the brother and sister, they're, like, in their 50s, and they another victim of the beach had a notebook and, like, wrote down all the names and addresses of the people that he experienced with, and so they take it with it and they find a cop that's working at was just at the resort, and so he looks up the names, like, that's a missing person and that's a missing person. Oh, we got something going on here. So the cops come and bust them for their illegal medical bullshit.
See, like, now I want, like, if there was a sequel, like, I want to know, okay, I mean, the cops, I imagine, would have, like, tons of leaks. It's not like that, or, like, with the FBI, like, who would take over this magical place that this, I mean, maybe, it could be very well that the government of, where did they say what country they ran? Like, does the country know about this place? Because I feel like it would have to, like, there'd be enough human history existence to, like, know that this place existed before someone's just like, you know, interesting. Okay.
And it'd be weird to investigate this. It's like, okay, you're telling me that these kids were, like, 6 and 11 and now they're in their 50s and you all believe that, and there's some magical beach that has it, and it's like, well, then they would have to do so much testing of, like, sending people in and make sure you go through the reef, and you got to stay for at least a couple hours so we could tell that you've aged, and the sequel, the follow-up, would be very weird to see.
Okay. I mean, I imagine we're not.
No.
Yeah, no. We're never going to get a sequel. I mean, I guess we also never seemed to be Unbreakable would get a sequel either.
That's very true.
I mean...
But he had an idea for sequels.
Unbreakable lended itself to sequels. Even after the first one, it's just like, okay, like, he's a hero now, so he could do more hero stuff. So, like, where does it land on your Shyamalan pantheon?
You know, it's...
Obviously, Last Airbender is best Shyamalan movie of all time.
Airbender, Lady in the Water, The Visit, Happening, those are all pretty low. I'd say it's better than all those.
Okay.
But it's not better than his, like, first 4.
Okay, so middle of the road.
Pretty middle. Whereas, like, I didn't mind The Visit, but there was a lot of stupid stuff I didn't like in that. And this is chock full of stupid stuff that you could really nitpick, but I just had a good time watching it.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. What's our main topic of the day?
Green Knight.
The Green Knight.
Directed by David Lowery, starring Dev Patel. Before we get into thoughts, I would just like to say, Dev Patel is so handsome in this movie. I am not a gay man. But he is just, I'm really jealous of his hair. I thought his hair looked great, and I was just like, man, like, I haven't really seen much of Dev Patel other than like Slumdog Millionaire and unfortunately The Last Airbender, and I know he's done like a lot of indie stuff, so this is the first time I've really seen him in a while, and like, just a handsome man throughout this entire thing.
Absolutely. And, you know, I had the same thought watching Snake Eyes. And it was like, wasn't it Andrew Golding?
Henry Golding.
It was just like, my God, what a handsome dude. Like, this is the guy that you chose to put, like, your Snake Eyes mask on? Because, I mean, it makes sense later on you could just recast him, but my God, handsome dude.
Yeah. Wow, attractive people in Hollywood. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
But that brings up a good point with this movie is if you put, like, Taron Egerton, that's his name, right?
Yeah.
As this character, would you care? Like, he adds so much to it, just not being a white person.
Yeah.
And being not conventionally attractive. Not like he's unattractive, but attractive in a weird way. Like, he is naturally an attractive dude, but he's not your typical Hollywood hunk.
Yeah.
So that really does add to this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the one thing I thought, like, very early on. I was just like, okay, it's cool that there's a person of color leading this sort of British style movie. You know, it's like, you know, typically whenever we've seen Knights, it's always a white guy, or like the gag is like, oh, he's the Black Knight, and then it's like Martin Lawrence movie, you know?
It's Jimon Hansu, you know?
Yeah. And I like that, even though clearly he was like fit, he never came off as like this muscular hero type. Yeah. Like, he was very lean and just like how I imagine like lots of knights might have been, like clearly like still in shape because they have to like carry armor and swords and stuff, and just like, you know, in that time you're just every day you're working like cutting down trees and stuff. I imagine like there wasn't, I imagine, like too many fat poor people. I mean, there might have been, I don't know.
I'm sure they existed, but like in that time you weren't eating all the sugars and the carbs and stuff, and you didn't have an opportunity to build mass.
Yeah.
You were buff because you were just existing.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to say about The Green Knight. Just Dev Patel's super attractive. Yeah, see it for Dev Patel's face and
I mean,
hair.
he is on the screen like every scene.
Every scene,
like,
yeah.
That's got to be tough. Like, not to keep going back to 30 Rock or whatever, but I was thinking of what's her name who plays Suri?
Yes.
Good old blonde lady.
Something Bowen, maybe?
Katrina Bowen.
Yeah.
Bowen?
Right? Doesn't matter.
Whatever. I was like, man, she's so lucky. I mean, besides being a gorgeous lady, but to like land a role where you barely have any lines, you're probably in every episode, and you're just background. You may have one joke, and you just hang out.
Is she? She's not in the credits, is she?
No.
Okay.
No, the weird ones that are in the credits are Scott Adsit.
Yeah. Judah Friedlander.
Yeah. And it's like, I guess they would be the next ones in line if they're not necessarily the main characters, but who else would you put in there?
Right. Now, did you ever read the Green Knight story, or did you know like anything that was going to happen? Nope. Even though this is like a sort of wild interpretation of it.
I saw the trailer and went, that looked cool, and I looked no further into it.
Okay. Well, I actually read the Green Knight story, or poem, I guess, whatever you want to call it. Or at least I believe I did. I can't remember if I actually read it or if I just like read the Wikipedia, which like broke it down. But I think I read it.
Okay.
It was a long time ago. And so like I knew essentially what was going to happen. I don't remember giants the size of like the Empire State Building. There's certainly some different takes on it, but it pretty much played out virtually how the basic story did. But I actually really like this movie. I'm getting from context clues from earlier, you didn't really care for it all that much. So hit me with your thoughts.
I like to rank my movies like A+ through F. And I gave this movie a C+.
Okay.
I thought it was absolutely gorgeous looking.
For sure.
Really well shot. great costuming and sets. Even though it felt small, it didn't feel like the set of Xena or Hercules or something. Like, it wasn't huge sweeping things like Lord of the Rings. It was small and contained, but it still felt real and lived in. Excuse me. I think all the actors were really good, but I just could not stay interested in what was going on. It was such a slow slog of meandering things. It was almost like, it was like 4 episodes of something, and it's like, this is the episode where he meets this husband and wife, and this is the episode when he runs into the, like, shitty kid, and it's just like, after every scene, it was like, and what was the point of that? And maybe I'm a big dum-dum, and these things go right over my head. I'm not the smartest dude, but I just couldn't see the point of any of it. No, the moral, nothing.
Okay. Well, I've virtually felt the opposite about it. I mean, this is in my wheelhouse of things I really enjoy. As the podcast continues, you'll see, like, I'm going to be reading a lot of fantasy books. And Lord of the Rings is my favorite, so obviously, like, I sort of lean towards the fantasy genre. So a lot of this stuff, worked for me from a genre bias, I guess. I agree, like, visually stunning looking in a lot of shots. I think the very opening scene of him, like, sitting there and, like, his head bursting into flames, while the voiceover kind of, like, sets up the, like, scene, like, just set the tone from the get-go. Like, it was kind of scary and weird, but also, like, intense, and then just, like, it was like the opening of Lord of the Rings. You have the voiceover, but, like, that gave you all this backstory, and, like, with Cate Blanchett's voice, it was just, like, soothing, and Howard Shore's score and stuff. It was one of those scenes where it just, like, set the tone and said, like, this is a high fantasy movie, like, this is this grand sweeping epic where it was like, this is gonna be kind of scary fantasy film that's just gonna be weird, for lack of a better term, even though I think even though it is weird, it wasn't as weird as I was expecting from, like, reviews, because, like, this is a movie I wouldn't necessarily recommend to a lot of people, for sure. It's out there, but I really, really liked it, just from an atmospheric standpoint. And I watched it with my fiance, and she said, I feel like I watched a mini-series in 2 hours, because, like you said, it just felt like this quest that he goes on, it was just like, he does this thing, and then he does this thing, and then he does this thing. And even, I mean, obviously that was intentional, because, one, that's the story that was written, essentially, but also, like, you get title cards every, like, 20 minutes or so. It was just like, okay, it's like you're starting a new chapter of a book, and this is part of his quest. But, so, I think it's the second sort of situation he deals with is he finds this, like, abandoned cabin in the woods, and it looks like no one's lived there in a long time, and he's just tired, and he enters the cabin, he, like, falls asleep on this bed, and then he wakes up, and this, youngish girl, she's probably, like, 25 in real life, but she looks 16 to 20, I don't know, and she's being super weird, and she's, like, floating, and it's like, okay, so she's some sort of spirit, and she's like, yeah, a guy chopped off my head. It doesn't look like it chopped off my head, but, like, it's in that lake. I need you to go get it. And, he goes down and gets it, and then you're just like, you might go, what was the point of that? But I liked the bit with him where she's like, I need you to go get this for me. And he's like, well, if I go get that, what do I get in return? And she's like, why would you ask me that? You're a knight. You shouldn't ask me that. And she got, like, really offended by it. And so I think the whole point of this part of the quest was doing something because it's the chivalrous thing to do, not because you get anything out of it. Because the girl was like, this guy who killed me wanted to lay with me, and I didn't want that, and so for that he killed me. It's like, and he even, like, tried to reach out and touch her, not necessarily in a sexual way, but she was like, I don't want that, I just want my head back. And then, he comes back in the house, and then there's just, like, a pile of bones laying in the bed, like it was there the whole time, even though he, like, lay next to it and it wasn't there before. And as he lays the head on the bed, the light from the morning comes, and it's just like, it's like he completed a level, and it's just like he's like, it's like he did like a chivalrous act, and he didn't gain anything from it other than like helping this lost soul be complete.
Sure.
And so I like that kind of thing. Now when he's in the water and it's turning like different colors, it's like, what's that about? Maybe it's about nothing other than like style. Yes. There's definitely, this movie definitely is not lacking in style.
Well, my issue with these chapters, one thing, couldn't read what those title cards said. The font was
old English
awful.
Writing pages.
And it's just like, oh, that's a J. Like, no, that's an O. No, that's a B. I don't know. I can't read them. So that made... I mean, they seem to get easier to read as they went. It seemed like they changed the font each time.
Yeah, for sure.
But they were impossible at the beginning.
Yeah.
So once he sets out on his quest after, which we'll go back to and talk about the Green Knight and everything, he comes across this boy who like sends him down the wrong path so he can get robbed. And I figured, since he's like, I'll go do your quest for you, I figured he was the person who cut this girl's head off. And so he was kind of like gonna follow in the wake of this little shitty dude who thinks he's a knight, and he's gonna go off and do these things. So it's like he's having to deal with all the consequences. And so, okay, he lays this girl to rest, and then he'd go on to the next thing. But nothing becomes of it. They're not connected. He didn't do this. He goes off, and then you see him at the end just walk in the fields again to, trick another traveler. But it's like, what was the point of him being caught, tied up, and then we do a pan where we see him turn into a skeleton and then pan back? I guess you can say it was, he could lay there and die and do nothing, or he can actually like pick himself up and fight and keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. But then what about that kid? Nothing is resolved with that. Okay, he learns a little lesson with the woman. Okay, move on to the next thing. Comes across this couple, and he gets a sash that he comes on.
Well, I can go a little bit further into that. But back to the kid. That part is a little washy for me. This is just my guess. I'd like to hear like the director's interpretation of it or whatever. Because I don't remember necessarily that part in the story, but that could have just been like, this kid does him a kindness of directed, even though it was a scheme. It was just like, okay, and the kid was just like, what are you going to give me for my kindness? And so he like tossed him a coin, even though he was just like, I just wanted to give you my thanks. It's like, I don't have to, we shouldn't need to do this. It's like, I'm looking for something, you can point me in the way. It's, it doesn't really change that much. And that might have been the precursor to him going, like, when he goes to the next girl's house and helps her find her head, that's why he's like, okay, well, what are you going to give me? It's like, I've lost all this stuff just to get here. And he doesn't have his axe at that point, because the kid stole it, and we'll get back to that later. So I think it was just like, one, it taught him, it's like, okay, like, if I'm going to get swindled, maybe I can swindle other people kind of thing. And also, like you said, you see him again at the end. It's like, that could have been, he could have killed him and didn't. It's like, he could have got his revenge on that kid later. It's like, come back. It's like, okay, I know he's going to do it. It's like, but I'm a chivalrous knight. I'm not going to kill this kid, kind of thing. It's not greatest, and it's maybe my interpretation's all wrong, but I think you could work something out there. Yeah, so...
Do you want to go forward to the next thing, or should we go back to how he sets off on his adventure?
We should really talk about sets off on his adventure.
So, after the little intro with the flaming head and everything, we hold on this shot of, like, a little barn with a guy slouched against it and a fire burning in the background. And then he runs in with his mistress or whatever, and they're running around having a good old time. What was going on there? What was that fire? What was any of that? I was like, every time, like, I was waiting for things to change, and I'm looking around, and it's like, what's going on? There's something hidden in here, and it's just like, nope.
I didn't even notice the guy leaning up against
that. I didn't notice at first.
Was he in there at the first shot or not? It was just, so that's why. I mean, I really like that shot.
It's a good shot.
It's a great shot. But yeah, as to, it's because it seems like from the way the camera moves in through the window, it's just like, all right, all that's happening outside. So like, there's a building on fire in, I assume, Camelot, I guess, but nothing's ever made of it. Or is it just a dream he has, and it pans in? Once again, like I said, there's some weird stuff and definitely open for interpretation. Or maybe it's not about, once again, it doesn't have to be about anything. It's just this is style.
Oh yeah, or this is just what happens daily.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, he is, at the beginning of this movie, he's not a knight. He I guess is technically the nephew of King Arthur, even though from what we can gather, they look nothing alike, but that's not important.
That's not the point.
That's not the point. It's not important at all. The only thing I would say as a side note, I was like, oh, it's exciting to see Dev Patel be the lead of this movie and be like, I mean, he's so good in this, I think. And then it's just like, okay, you have this person of color being trying to be a knight, and then you have his mother character who they say is a witch, and I mean, she does witch-like things, and it's like, okay, well, it's like, yeah, it's cool you have this guy doing this thing, and then you still have the stereotype of like this foreign Indian woman doing black magic shit. So I just thought that was a little, I'm not sure. But anyway, and King Arthur is this old man now, and he's like can't fight, but he has his Knights of the Round Table and everything, and he's still, this legendary figure who everyone like respects him as the king, and that's all great. And Arthur's just like, tell me about yourself, because you're my nephew, and we've never really talked or had conversation or anything. And he's just like, well, I don't have a story to tell, and that's sort of like what leads him to take this challenge from the Green Knight as he enters. And the Green Knight looks fucking cool, I think he looks... Oh, you don't like it? I figured you'd love it because it looks exactly like the stuff you see on Face Off.
That's my problem. It looks like something cheap from Face Off. Like, it's well done, but my main problem with the look is it has these big circles around the eyes where you like can see pretty much his skin, and it just looks like a mask. It doesn't look like a crazy tree person monster thing. It looks like a dude in facial prosthetics. It's
I think you'd be stoked that it's like
makes a good silhouette,
practical effects,
and I love practical effects, but it needed another go around,
another layer of something. I mean, it was very simple, like outside of the head and his hands. Like, I mean, it was just a dude in like
and that
armor.
I have no problem with. It's around the eyes. It's really cheap looking.
Okay. It didn't bother me.
No, that's all I could look at, and like it was very distracting. But that's me.
Okay.
And so when the night comes in, it's like Christmas or
Christmas Day.
Christmas Day, and it's like, hey, we're gonna play this game, and you hit me with whatever blow you want, and I'll do the same thing to you, and then we'll go as friends. And so he decides to cut his fucking head off. He didn't say you had to take him out. You didn't have to kill him. He's just like, just put a blow on me, and I'll do the same to you. And it's like, my thought was instantly like, you nick him, and that's it. And then that's what he's going to do to you, and then go as friends. And it's like, why would you set yourself up to be beheaded? And I could see with him, it's like, oh, well, I gotta have that story to tell. I gotta do the thing. But it just seemed like he laid the ground rules pretty simply. Whatever you do to me, I do to you. So why do you go for the killing blow?
Yeah. Well, the thing with that is, I think, from his perspective, and I don't know like how much fantastical things the people of this world have seen. Like, as far as we know, he's never left Camelot. They might have even said like he's never like really been outside the walls, because he hasn't been a knight, he hasn't fought in battles or whatever. Like, he's trained with swords and stuff, but for all we know, he's never seen a mythical creature like this guy. Even though he doesn't seem to be particularly like surprised. Like, everyone in the room is like clearly sort of like nervous because there's this like weird tree man who's like in the room. And I mean, I really liked how whenever he moved, it just sounded like a giant, like, in his body like not crumbles, but
the groaning
of wood.
Yeah,
really cool sound effects, or sound design.
But and it's like, I just assumed fantastical things have happened and people know of the Green Knight, so they're on guard because they know who he is, not that he's a weird tree person. They're not like, holy shit, this isn't a human. They go, oh, this is the Green Knight. We know what he's all about. So we're going to be on guard, but we're not going to flip our shit by seeing a living tree knight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's at least how I see it, is just like Arthur has seen this kind of stuff because he's been out in the world and like, you know, he has a magical sword. Merlin's in the movie, you know, he doesn't speak a line of dialogue.
Is he?
He's it's on IMDb, but the guy who plays Merlin is like the old guy with the beard, and I think he's got like the black marks under his eyes, and he like kind of like turns to him and like shakes his head no, and like touches a baby later in the movie. So that's Merlin, just so you know, even though they never say it. Yeah, I don't. There's no context clues that they were like expecting, or like the people in this world like knew who the Green Knight was. I got that everyone knows about the Green Knight after Gawain takes his head off, and then it's like, oh, Gawain was like so heroic and like did this thing, and everyone's like talking him up for an entire year. But I don't, as far as I know, I don't think anyone like knew who he was or like expected him to show up. But in terms of him like going for the killing blow, it's like, okay, like, and that might have just been his own cowardice, because a big theme of the movie is like, can this man get over like his fear and, you know, his doubts and become the heroic, honorable character that he wants to be. So it's just like, oh, well, if I cut this guy's head off, he can't give me a blow back because he'll just be dead. So I think that was the...
I don't know, a talking tree monster thing, don't assume that you could just kill it, you know, with one strike.
Yeah, but if I can kill something and that I never have to worry about it again, I'm going to try and kill it, and then if I don't, then that's the problem.
But when the tree monster tells you, I'm going to do the same thing to you, I'm not going to be so dumb to go, if I kill him, I'm going to be good. I mean, this is a talking tree monster, so I'm going to take the precaution and not do a killing blow, because in his mind does he think like, oh, he's not smart enough to know, I'll just kill him and then he can't come back. I feel like it's set up poorly, and maybe it should have been rewritten to what the Green Knight says, instead of just like, you give me a blow, I give you a blow, and then we part as friends. If they reworded that to make it be like, yeah, you gotta kill him in one strike or else or something, it can make a little more sense to me, but it just seemed like a really dumb decision.
Yeah, and I mean, I think in the original poem, he might have worded it in a way where you can't, like, you can strike me, but even if you give me a scratch, I'm going to give you a full blow back, and we'll part as friends. Like, at least that's how I remember it. I don't know if that's true. Like, this is just like, whatever you do to me, I'll do back. So it's like, logically, and maybe you're just not thinking logically, because one, you've never seen a talking, walking tree man, and you're just scared, so you just want to cut its head off. So I can buy that he did that. So that part doesn't really bother me. But in terms of like, as an audience watching, it's like, okay, well, why don't you just give him a scratch? He gives you a scratch. I get it, but
yeah, it does feel like the call to adventure is a little weak, and especially if nobody knows who this guy is. He's just like shows up and like, well, what's his fucking deal? Why did he show up? Why does he feel the need to do this?
Yeah, and I mean, like, also when the Green Knight starts and they like face off, like, Gawain thinks that they're gonna like fight, and he's just like, and then he just puts down his axe and bends down and is like, no, just give me your best shot, kid, kind of thing.
But why? Why does he do this in the first place?
Why have the game at all?
Exactly. What does the Green Knight get out of this?
To challenge someone's... And once again, this is kind of from the story, and we'll get to it later down the line, but it's just a fantastical, magical call to adventure, starting off in a fantastical way, and it's like... And Arthur even said... Like, I think Arthur knew what was gonna transpire from the get-go, and that's why he's just like... You know, he even says to him, just remember, this is just a game. And...
But it's more than a game. Like, a game, it's kind of like you could end it and everybody can go as friends, you know? But it's not a game. He's gonna die. Like, Arthur is pretty much setting him up to be killed.
He could die, but that's the game. He needs to make the right moves to win the game, which he does at the end. But once again, this is all from, it's a movie with a lot of interpretation, but Arthur couldn't make... I mean, Arthur, if he did know, could have just been like, hey man, if you show up and just like keep it real, he's not going to kill you, kind of thing, you know? But like, Arthur's not playing the game. Gawain said he would play the game. Arthur said, I would have played the game if I could, but I can't, because I'm too old to wield a sword anymore. And if he told Gawain the answer to the thing, Gawain's not going to get his honor and courage and all that stuff. Because like, oh well, like I basically cheated because I got the answer.
It just feels like he's getting fucked no matter what. Like he's being set up. I just feel
and that's why he's so afraid of during the whole movie. Like he is terrified of, like he doesn't even want to go, and he only leaves because King Arthur's like, you need to go. Like I'm telling you to go.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this. If it was like the Green Knight was wronged by Arthur years ago. You know, Arthur did something, and whatever that adventure was led to him becoming king, and the Green Knight's coming back saying like, look, you wronged me, I'm here to take my revenge or whatever, and Dev Patel steps up and goes like, well, I'll face you, and then you can have their duel or whatever, and then set this up. I think that would play a little better, but in this it's just like, yeah, I'm a dick, I'm going to show up, and I'm going to say, you can hit me however you want, but I get to kill you in a year. You have to do it. This is my game.
He never says he's going to kill him. I'm just going to give you a blow back. And he never says how strong the blow is, but from context clues, you're believed to, like, you cut off my head, I'm going to cut yours off too. But what's also interesting and we didn't talk about is, you know, we briefly talked about his mother being like a witch, but like from the way the movie's shot, it seems like she's the one who summons him.
Yeah.
So she's like, so you could say that his mom wanting him not to be like a drunken, stupid fool, like wanting the best for him, like makes this, like, she's, maybe my son will die. And I mean, she even gives him the sash so he won't die. It's like she's the one who sets him up on this adventure in the hopes that he'll be something more than what he currently is. So I think that's something that, you know, I can see a lot of people like not really thinking about, because they're just like, why is the Green Knight doing it? It's like the Green Knight's doing this because like he's a magical creature created for the sole purpose of like testing this guy's honor, and that's the whole point. Like he's not doing it because, you know, he's just got a fetish for getting his head cut off or anything, or he's just like some dude who's like sent by some evil being, because he's not an evil being. He's just like an agent of testing knights, and none of the other knights took up the call except for the guy who has the most courage. I mean, not the most courage, the most fear or whatever, and it only really did it because he's like, I want to be cool like these guys. It's like, that's not a reason to do a thing.
I wish her motivation was set up a little bit better. If it was like, you know, I want to put him on a quest that he can do some like easy low ball pitch that, you know, my son could really show that he's worth something, and then oops, I summoned the wrong thing, or I got him into something that he can't handle. But it's just like, or if she was, I need to get him on the throne, the only way I can do it is by having him going on this quest and defeating the Green Knight or whatever. But if this is all her, it's like she just set him up to die.
It's a mother's test. Yeah, I mean, but you're looking at a fantastical world where like maybe that's just like something witch people do, you know. I think we're like trying to put more modern day, like, why do this logic on a thing that's like, it's supposed to be,
and that's why I can't get
fantasy
behind certain things like that. Like, and I know I've talked to you about this before, but the Scorsese Priest movie,
Silence, yes,
like, is the most frustrating movie at all, because in their minds they cannot put their feet on the plaque of God or whatever, because that would be the most disrespectful thing ever.
You're stepping on Jesus'
You're stepping on Jesus' face, and if you don't do it, you will be killed, and they refuse to. And so my modern mind is just like, that's the dumbest thing in the world. Just fucking do it. Like, swallow your goddamn pride, pray to God later and say, I didn't want to die, because if I died, I couldn't serve you, and blah, blah, blah. Just fucking do it. So when your characters go through these things, and I can't get behind it, it's hard for me to get behind the movie. And it's just like, that's stupid. It's like, oh, I'm going to put my son on this test to prove he's so good, and he's going to die. And that's just the way things are. Well, the way things are really dumb. So, sorry, I can't get behind your movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just seems like a personal bias. And
absolutely.
And I totally get that. It's like, I think that depending on the movie, like, the point is, like, if you have to try and put yourself in the character's shoes. So that's what I'm trying to do. It's like,
and they need to make it known. Like, if you have someone making a speech about honor being greatest thing, and doing this is, you know, it's better to die in battle than an old man on a bed or whatever. Like, tell the audience these things so we can be like in their mindset. And a lot of times, like, we have to just assume through actions, and maybe this is just me being the big dum-dum and I need someone to hold my hand and explain things while it's happening. But if your context clues aren't a little stronger, I'm not going to catch it.
I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you, like, I hate when movies are left ambiguous, or like they just have, like, I love Birdman. I love that movie all the way up to the last 90 seconds. Like, him going out the window and Emma Stone looking down and then looking up, and it's just like, what the fuck was that all about? Like, I hate those kind of endings because it just tells me, like, you didn't know how to end the movie, so here's just a weird scene. And
maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's up to you to decide.
You know, you're an artist and you're just like, well, that's for the artist to decide. I don't need to hold your hand throughout it. And you don't, like, if you made the thing, you don't have to answer to anybody. I get that and I respect it. But at the same time, it's like, there's certain movies that just end ambiguously, and then you're just like left at the end like, well, what the fuck was that all about? And it's just like, I don't like those kind of endings. Not necessarily because I need everything to be spoon-fed to me, but because it's just like, that just to me just seems like you're just trying to be either artsy or pretentious, or like you had a great movie and you didn't know how to end it, so here's like a weird little tag at the end. It's like, I don't like that stuff. But like, I felt like this movie, even though you could argue it's pretentious and weird and stuff, I think it gave enough information where I could like track why characters were doing a thing and why things were the way they were and what the overall purpose of like each scene was, with the exception of the giant scene, which like I have a theory, but that scene's probably the weirdest scene in the movie.
That seems like something that was made because they wanted to put something so fantastical.
And that's what I said to my fiance. I was just like, I think that whole scene solely pretty much exists to go like, look how magical this world is. Like, we've seen magical stuff, but this is like, now it's on a grand scale where there's, you know, like these things that are not just giant, but like, you know, 40 stories tall, like walking the earth and naked for some reason. The only thing I thought about that scene was like, you know, him asking for a ride and then the thing reaching for him, and my thought was it was reaching to like give him a ride, but because it's this big thing and he like recoiled away and he got scared, it like, you know, was offended. It's like, I offered you my hand and you turned it away, so now you're gonna have to walk. And they just leave. And so like, now his journey is harder because he was afraid. Like, he asked for help and then he turned away once he got it. Even though he might have just thought like, oh, this thing's gonna grab me and squish me in its hand, because like, why wouldn't it?
Why wouldn't it?
So that's how I interpreted that scene. So it was just like another thing. It was just like, he tried to take a shortcut, and even when he offered it, it was just, he offended the person he asked, and so he like failed that kind of challenge. Or maybe it wasn't about failing a challenge, but like, you can't take shortcuts. Like, this is your quest. You need to complete it on your terms, not with help of some giant thing. All right, so now the Lord and the Lady. The lady, played by the same actress who plays his girlfriend.
Why?
Which I thought was an interesting choice. I get it, because it's like, what would tempt me more than, it's like, here's this version that I have who I, you know, really like and care for, but she's a prostitute. Yeah. And then here's the grandest version of her, but she's married to this guy. And he never plays it like, I know you. He never like, what are you doing here kind of thing. It's just like, he's like, it can't be her. It's just some, I mean, for all we know, it's her twin sister who married a lord or whatever. So what are your thoughts about these two?
This was the scene I nodded off the most. And it's a shame because this has the most dialogue in any of the parts, and I think that's what this movie really needed. And I bet people would kill me for saying this, but I kind of wish he had a traveling companion. He needed like a Samwise, and so he had the fox.
Yeah.
But the fox doesn't talk until the very end, and I kind of wish the fox talked the whole time, whether it's actually talking or not, or it's just him talking to himself. It's a good way to just bounce dialogue back and forth and express emotion and stuff, so dum-dums like me understand what the character's feeling without having to try to just like read context clues. I think that could have really helped this movie. So then we get to these two, and it's nothing but dialogue, and I can't remember a single goddamn thing said. Nothing of importance stood out to me. Mm-hmm. And the only thing I remember is the cum shot. Which was very surprising.
That was a scene I didn't expect, because that definitely wasn't the original poem.
You know, he was blasting mega ropes all over his...
Yeah, I don't think Anonymous was writing erotic fan fiction back in the day. So it's funny because it's weird that this is the scene that you like the least, only because like it's essentially like the most important part of the original tale. So in this scene, well, honestly the second weirdest part of this movie is the fact that she like invented photography or something like that. You remember when she's like, let me paint you, and then she like puts a light on, and then his image is like projected with light on like a canvas.
Nope.
You don't remember that?
It must have been one of the times I closed my eyes.
Okay, well, never mind. She basically invents photography, and then like he even takes that painting at the end of the movie and like is holding it in court or whatever. But anyway, so basically with this movie, he's with this lord and lady. The lady looks just like his girlfriend back home, except like way more put together. The lord basically offers him like, every day I will go hunting and I will bring you back something, and then in return you give me whatever you get from the house. And Dev Patel's like, I don't know, like, you own everything in here, like I don't know what I would get that you would get. He's like, well, this house has ways of like giving you things you didn't expect. The lady is just like hardcore flirting with Dev Patel, clearly like trying to tempt him into some sort of sexual encounter. I don't think we mentioned it, but early in the movie he loses his sash to the kid at the beginning. The first day he gets a book from her, and it's just a book. You know, nothing really comes of that. Yeah.
You have all this shit and you give me a book. Cool.
Or maybe day 2. I don't remember. I need to try and... It doesn't matter. Anyway. But basically on the last day he's there, the lady comes in and is just like, I have this sash, and is like, where'd you get that? That's my sash. And she's like, you know, it has magical properties that, you know,
Didn't she say she made it?
Maybe. Yeah, I think she does. But it's clearly the same sash from before. And she's like, if you wear this, the Green Knight you won't ever come to harm, like nothing can hurt you. And clearly, like, and tomorrow he's got to go face the Green Knight, so he's like scared.
Score.
Yeah, so he's just like, this is great. And then it just becomes this thing where they're like really close to each other, and like it's like they're not having sex, but it like the way they're talking to each other and the way they're sort of like moving, it's like they're having sex, which I thought was like a cool little thing. It's just like, here's this thing that's tempting you, and like, ooh, like, don't you want it so bad? It's like, it's gonna be like your saving grace. And then he's like, I want it. And so she gives it to him, and then pan down, soaked in cum. So much cum, like hands covered in cum. And so it's just like, it's one of those things, just like, did they really have sex? And this is just like the interpretation.
I think he was out,
or he was just jerking him off.
Jacking him. Yeah. I mean, because there's so many petticoats and stuff she would have to take off for them to actually have sex, and he was laying down, she was standing the whole time, so I think she was just jacking him off.
But however you interpret that scene, he has an affair with this woman and takes something of hers, and, you know, he's like ashamed of it, and the axe that the kid stole from earlier is just in his room suddenly. And so he's like, okay, cool, and leaves, and because it's like, I don't want to be here when this guy gets back. And they run into each other in the woods, and then the Lord is like, you want to give me stuff? He's like, I'm sorry, I don't want to play this game, like, I don't want to give you anything, you don't have to give me anything, I'm just gonna go and face the Green Knight. And he's like, you sure? And they like kiss each other. That, you know, freaks him out, and so he just runs off. So in the original story, if I remember correctly, he gets 3 gifts. Day 1, I think he gets a kiss from her, and then day 2 he gets
under the bra.
He gets full frontal. But I don't remember what he gets on the second day. But basically, and then the third day he gets the sash. And so I think the first day he goes, and I think they like kiss on the Gawain and the lady kiss on the lips. But Gawain doesn't want to do that to this man, so he just like gives him a kiss on the cheek, which like you would think would be your wife kissed me kind of thing, or like I kissed your wife. And then I think the second day he gives him something, and then the third day he doesn't give up the sash because he's like, I want that. He doesn't even tell the guy he like got it. So like that's the whole important thing. It's just like these people were designed to tempt him. Like it turns out that the Lord is actually the Green Knight in disguise, which they don't do in this movie, if I remember correctly. So that's another sort of fantastical element of that. Yeah, so it was just like this really sort of odd scene that I didn't expect, and they definitely took some different liberties with this part of the story, which I thought was cool, but like I just wish they did the thing where like 2 days he gave the gifts back, and on the third day he failed. Yeah. Where this, like, it seems like he got something every day, but never brought up anything, which I thought was kind of weird. But maybe that was just to illustrate like how selfish he was, or whatever. Now we get to the, final sort of act of the movie. So what's your thoughts on that? I imagine you don't like it just like everything else.
Well, before we move on, me with the kid that he runs into in the first part, this totally could have like been a connected thing of like he kills that woman, cuts her head off because he tried to rape her or whatever, and then he gets the axe there, doesn't he?
You're right. Yes, he does. Yeah. I'm sorry.
So, and then then that kid could come across the lady and the Lord and do the same sort of thing, like they offer him the same trials, and he like fucking just fails it and is completely disrespectful or whatever, and maybe they kill him, maybe he's chained up in a dungeon or something like that.
And that very well could have been the only reason I didn't think that was connected was because it seemed like that place had been the place where the headless girl was there, and it was dusty for so long. Unless the purpose of like that shot of him in the bones was like sort of a time display, but that's just that just seems a little. And
it seems like he could have.
Like you might be right in terms of because that tracks. That makes sense.
But the fact that he's like back in the field once that Patel's coming back, but I guess that's not reality. So
yeah, the way that was shot is not like it was definitively like they're on the same plane. Like it was kind of like almost two different scenes over top of each other.
Oh really?
If I remember correctly, it was just like
I just thought he was foreground background.
Yeah, I mean it was, but I
think it was two overlaid shots.
There was something different about the shot. It wasn't just like one clear shot, if I remember correctly. That's the thing about this movie. I think it's worth a rewatch, and I think it will hold up in the long term. I think it's going to age really well. Okay. But yeah, back to the ending.
So the ending. So he shows up, and he sits and he waits for the Green Knight because he's there early.
Yeah, he's there like a day early.
And then the Green Knight wakes up and he's just like, all right, let's chop your head off. And he's all like, okay, fine, let's do it. And then he keeps chickening out, and it was almost like comical how many times he had to go like, wait. It just seemed like something that would be in a comedy movie. And then he would like, punch the Green Knight in the balls and run off. Like it was just silly.
Yeah.
But then he runs off and goes all the way home and lives a long life and has a baby with his mistress, but has a new wife and
becomes king,
and then gets invaded. The Crusades, I'm assuming.
I don't know if it's necessarily a crusade or whatever. It could be, but
I don't know history.
Well, these people didn't really exist.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know history of the time that it's supposed to take place.
But yeah, so he has a son and becomes king, and the son grows up. Son dies in battle. He watches the son die. He comes home. His people hate him.
Throwing shit at him
as he like comes home from war after just losing his son. His Camelot is essentially crumbling around him. There's some force outside, whether it be his own people rallying against him or the enemy or both, and loses his head, and then that's. And I thought like maybe that's how it was going to end. I thought it was going to be like some really like dark hereditary type ending, where it's just like because like none of that's in the story. Like Gawain never becomes king as far as I can recall in any sense. I was happy it cut back. Like, that would have been an ending. I would have been like, okay, like, I don't know if I followed this guy on this quest. I wanted to see him succeed.
Yeah, and then you would be kind of like dropping the whole Green Knight story.
Yeah.
If it's like, oh, all he had to do was show up and then run away?
Yeah.
That's pretty easy.
But what I liked about that whole sequence was he never took off the green sash as just like a reminder of his like failure and shame. And it's like, even when he was like naked with his mistress or naked with his new wife, he's just like, she tried taking it off and like, he's like, no, don't touch that. It's like he had to wear it because, one, it was his protection and he was a coward, and two, it was like, just to remember. And so I thought all that was like really, really cool. He only died, at the end, and I love that shot of him like pulling the scarf out from like under his shirt and like kind of sounded like he was pulling out his own entrails. Yeah. I thought that was really cool. And then like that's when he finally, died. And it like wasn't even killed by an enemy. It's just like once he took it off, it was like the blow had already been dealt to him.
Yeah.
And just...
That's what I assumed. Like, he got his head cut off, but since he had the belt on, he survived. And he knew the moment he took it off, that's when he would actually die. But that didn't happen. Or at least that's just what he imagined could have potentially happened. And I think that could have been just a good definitive ending of...
Yeah, if it ended there, I wouldn't have been upset. I think I still would have liked it. But I liked that it stayed true to the story where, he... Because I think in the original story, he might have, like, gotten nicked by... Or, like, he... Okay, so I think if I remember correctly, he's like, okay, like, this is cheating, and he, like, took it off and threw it down, and the Green Knight delivers him a blow, but he just, like, gives him a scratch kind of thing. He's like, the blow's been returned, that kind of thing, and then Gawain goes on, and he still wears the sash because he still kind of... He wasn't totally chivalrous, so he wore the green sash for the rest of his life. As a reminder, it's like, I, took a kiss from a married woman, and I, like, was afraid. So, like, that's how he sort of carries the green on him, and that kind of becomes known as the Green Knight. So he still wears it all his life, but he didn't wear it for the blow. And so I like that the Green Knight was just like, I like that last line. It was like, now off with your head, as in, like, go live your life. I thought that was a real clever little play on words. So I like the ending. I
think those last 10 minutes are probably the strongest part of the movie. Yeah. And
I heard a lot of people didn't like the ending, though, and I was just like, no, the ending worked for me.
Yeah, and I like that sort of long montage of someone's life with no dialogue, just music. I'm kind of a sucker for that, so I appreciate it, because if it was just like, he lays his head down and the Green Knight like just hits a stump and goes like, haha, you were brave to do it, and I'm gonna let you go, and he just walked off and completed his quest, I'd be like, well, what's next? What happens when he gets back? So I like that we get a kind of a resolution with his mistress and, stealing the baby from her. And
he didn't steal, he paid for his baby.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Flip a coin. So yeah, I when he said, and now off with your head, and then it like cut to the title card, you could just hear everybody in the audience were like, what? Like, people were not happy with that ending.
Well, and that's the other thing, I think, for people who don't know the story and like its purpose of, like, it's not a story of a man fighting monsters, it's the story of a man finding his courage and honor. And it's like, you get it's the Kill Bill thing. It's just like, you've been waiting this whole movie to see this guy fight this guy. It's like, will he get his head cut off? Will he die? Or will they fight? Will he defeat this monster? It's like, well, no, it's not what it's all. There's not going to be a final bout. It's like it's just this game, and he won the game in the end. But so I liked it, and it set all that up. It wasn't trying to be anything other than what it was about, I felt like. But I'll be the first to admit, like I said, I wouldn't recommend this movie to anyone unless you're like a fan of film or this sort of genre in that sort of way. It's not the Marvel universe at all.
No.
I will say, though, I think, if you think about it, King Arthur and all that, and the Knights of the Round Table might be like the first Avengers. You
can think that all you want, whether it's factual. It's for literary.
Lancelot's, King Arthur's Captain America. Lancelot's, I don't know, Iron Man or something.
Sure. Whatever. Merlin's Nick Fury, I guess.
Doctor Strange, bro.
Yeah, but I mean, because he's a wizard, the role that he plays.
Sure.
Yeah, I think talking it through with you has definitely helped. It's not going to make me change my rating or anything, because this, I can agree, I bet it will age well, but I think it would be kind of like the movie Legend for a lot of people with Tom Cruise and Tim Curry. Like, I love that movie. It's really beautiful, and it's slow and melodic, but you don't always want to go back to it. It's a little long, and it's a little artsy-fartsy.
Yeah,
so I can see myself not going back to this.
I mean, it's 2 hours and 12 minutes, and I think I was really into it for like an hour and 40, and then I checked my phone and like, okay, there's still like 30 minutes or so left. Not that I was ever bored or whatever. It's just, you know, sometimes if there's like a lull, you're just like, all right, well, let me just check my watch. But I mean, I was invested the whole time. I wasn't bored. Yeah, I am also a person who's like, if there's, like, I saw a movie called 13 Assassins. Did you ever see that movie? It's a Japanese samurai film, essentially, and there's a part where like a character gets killed, like sword straight through the neck, like he's definitely dead, and then he comes back at the end, seemingly perfectly fine, nothing, like they never bring it up that he was dead, and he just like walks off, and we're just like, well, what the hell is that about? And then like I went online and looked it up, and he's supposed to represent some sort of like monkey god or something in Japanese culture, even though it was like nothing that made him appear monkeyish other than like kind of like how he moved, and I think they like found him in a tree at the beginning of the movie, but he wasn't like a monkey person by any means. And I was just, I hate that kind of stuff where it's like I need to know some sort of like deep lore to really understand stuff. It's like if you do these things in movies and I don't understand, it's like to me you failed as a storyteller, because like I shouldn't have to do extra research to understand your movie. Maybe if I didn't know what was going to happen in The Green Knight, I'd be like more like you and like have a harder time getting into it. But like knowing that information and taking this movie for what it was and trying to do, I actually really enjoyed it. So maybe that's why there's a difference.
For sure.
But it's definitely, I think, top 3 of the movies of this year for me. It might be number 1. I have to think about what other movies I really loved, but I also haven't seen as many movies as you. So
yeah, but everything I've been watching has been just like, I would say I like Black Widow more than this, but I also gave that a C+, you know? Because I also had to rank it on comparing it to its genre and other things around it. Like, for a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, Black Widow is just a C+. It's better than a lot, not as good as most. For this, it's like...
Black Widow is designed to be fun, but this is designed to
make you think.
Make it, set a tone.
So it's like this would also be a C+ when it comes to, like, fantasy movies. Like, Guy Ritchie's King Arthur, I'll watch that a million times, like, before I watch this movie.
I've only seen, like, 10 minutes of that movie, and I have no desire to end.
It is so much fun because it's big dumb fun, and I like big dumb fun. But it's just it's interesting, and you know what the hell's going on, and you don't have to read into anything.
If we had a comment section, I imagine there's going to be a bunch of like really weird subset of like King Arthur fans who are just like, yeah, Guy Ritchie's King Arthur's fucking dope. Ben's right.
And other people going like, this guy's an idiot. He doesn't know cinema.
Steve was totally right about Green Knight. It's the best movie. It's just a total list of all the symbolism.
Yep. Yeah, I also would not recommend it to most people. Like, my boss is like super excited for this to come out, and it was so frustrating talking to him. He's like, so do you think Green Knight's gonna do well at the box office? It's like, no, it's a weird art house movie. There's no way.
A24 doesn't make money unless it's, I think Hereditary made some money.
Yes, but that was like
Moonlight, but that's because it was Oscar nominated.
Yeah, but like Hereditary was like the public critic panned, you know, like on the Rotten Tomatoes, like real critics gave it high, audience score was like really low because they're even dumber dummies than I am.
People just don't understand horror.
And so I asked my boss.
I hate horror, but
yeah, horror's the best. So I asked my boss, and it's like, well, okay, so yeah, I said, no, it's probably not going to make much money. He's like, oh, but it looks so cool. I'm like, well, are you going to go see it this weekend? No. I'm like, well, there you go. That's why these movies don't make money, because the people who really want to see them don't want to pay for it. And
I paid for it.
I paid for it too.
Yeah.
I pay for my movies.
We're good people.
I don't pirate shit. I have multiple subscription service, and I pay for cable. Yeah, I pay for movies.
Ben Harvey for president. I pay for movies. That's your slogan.
But most people wouldn't vote for me. They're like, fuck that guy. Sucker, paying for movies. Just pirate that shit.
Yeah. All your voters would be like, oh yeah, I love movies. And they'd be like, oh, that guy's cool. Hey, what's your favorite movie? And then whatever movie you said, it'd be like, gay. And then just not vote for him.
Now, if I had to run for president on the platform of I like movies, I would probably have to say, okay, to win over most people, I'd be like, my top 5 movies are Psycho, Fight Club, Shawshank Redemption,
Boys in the Hood,
Casablanca,
basic,
and Norbit. And he fucking kills it in Norbit.
Medea family reunion.
No, Medea's boo. Duh. You get horror and comedy. It's the best of both worlds.
With fun Christian undertones. Mm-hmm. All your favorite things.
The best things. All right. Well, that was fun.
I'm going to say A- for me. B+, A-.
If you'd like to get in contact with us, we are at WRPL Podcast on Twitter or WRPL Podcast at gmail.com.